Oh. there's yet another big issue. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the stable, where we are in the final stages before Scrapstang takes his first breath. In the last video, we mocked up the Phytech system, getting the wiring set and routed where it needs to go, which was fairly simple considering there's only 5 connections that need to be made. But we ended up hitting a stopping point because we didn't have enough parts to continue, and boy, did you guys respond. That's all from you guys. I could not have asked for a better community to be supporting us and support our vision and to support the Scrapstang. You guys are literally badass. From one video to the next, you guys supplied us with a ton of progress to be made on the Scrapstang. I can't thank you guys enough. This first set of parts were sponsored by our buddy Johnny Canuck, starting off with 5 quarts of break-in oil, as well as a really nice set of Taylor spark plug wires, a coil bracket, an ignition lock cylinder, and an ignition switch. Huge thanks to Johnny. He gave us a budget of 200 bucks and he told us to use it however we see fit, and this is what I chose. This next set of parts was sponsored by the one and only Catman. So we now have a flywheel in order to start this engine. For those of you that didn't know, the starter motor uses the teeth on the outsides of the flywheels or the flex plates in order to turn over that engine, as well as a set of flywheel bolts to go along with that. Shout out to Mr. Catman. Next set of parts was sponsored by Mr. Michael Sanchez. We just picked these up from the PO box. Let's see what we got. Oh, sweet. And it's black. Holy crap, this is nice. It's a water neck for the thermostat or thermostat housing, whatever you guys want to call it. But it is black, so that means it's gonna match perfectly with these CVF accessories. Next up, whoa, that flew at me. Oh, sweet. For those of you that don't know, this is a distributor hold down tab. And these are important because, well, I'll just play the clip. Oil pump if we have to. Well, oh no. The freaking distributor cap is broken. And that's why it's important to have these. Shout out to the homie Michael for sending over these parts. And last but certainly not least, our good friend Robert Lugo sent us over this ignition coil to make sure we have a good spark when we go to first start this engine. Holy crap, you guys definitely made sure we had enough content to film this week. Let's get to it. If we're installing the flywheel, I guess the engine has to come out again, right? Well, I guess we can now see how difficult it's going to be to unplug some of this Phytech stuff. We have 1 plug, 2 plug, 3 plug. If you guys remember, we put the main harness connectors under the dash, so those have to come undone. Pretty easy peasy. And the rest of the system stays connected. Fish it back out. And just like that, the Phytech system should be all disconnected. Yep, we'll get this stuff out of the way. Bonk. Alrighty, engine is out, summer is in, and we got work to do. For the flywheel installation, it's kind of hard to mess up because the bolts only go on one direction. So if I turn it this way, you'll see that this bolt aligns, this bolt doesn't align, this one doesn't align, and so on and so forth. There's only one way that this will really go on. And we do have red Loctite on these bolts. I know some people don't use it and they've been fine, but I also know cases where they didn't use it and these bolts vibrated their way out and messed up their crankshaft. Alrighty, so these flywheel bolts are going to get a torque rating of about 80 foot-pounds, but to prevent this thing from rotating while I'm torquing these down, I'm going to put 2 bolts to give us some leverage. So I'm going to use this big breaker bar as leverage. I'm gonna hit them at 50 pounds first. All right, all of them are at 50. We're gonna move up to 80. All right, that's it. Now we can take these bolts out. We aren't going to be installing the pilot bearing nor the clutch assembly because we don't have those yet. And the goal for now is to just get this engine started. So this should be good enough. And while the engine is already out, we might as well bolt the rest of the parts onto it. I'm thinking maybe place this coil somewhere right about here. And remember guys, we're redesigning the wiring, so we can basically put this on this side. This side, I've seen some people lay it down flat over here, but I think right here is where we're gonna go. Hey. Also, speaking of new parts, if you guys remember, Diane bought us a distributor and we broke the cap, so the cap man came to save the day. Now we have a new cap. Simply pop this one off. And I like these quarter turn screws. It reminds me of aviation stuff. All right, let's put this dizzy in. Get rid of that guy. We want the rotor to be facing somewhere towards the back. Please. See, the problem isn't that it's not going in with the gears on the camshaft. The issue is that the oil drive shaft isn't rotating into place with this thing, so that's where we're getting some of that issue. Please, please, please. Okay, that went in, but I don't think it's pointing the right direction. I think we're one tooth off. It goes in. Oh! We did, okay, now it's good. All right, now that it is facing the right direction, we can throw our cap back on. And yes, now we're going to add our hold down tab to make sure we don't make the same mistake again. We're just gonna snug it down because we still need to do some timing adjustments once we start the engine. Enough to be able to move it. I am going to make one change. This coil I'm gonna flip 180 degrees because when I'm making my timing adjustments, I have to move the distributor back and forth, and I'm very likely to make contact with this positive terminal right here. So I'd rather it hit the ground rather than the positive. Obviously we don't want it to make contact at all, but knowing my luck, it is bound to happen. And for the Phytech coolant temperature sensor, they do recommend you using a thread sealant, whether that be tape or the paste. Before we throw on the new thermostat housing and thermostat, we're going to drill a small hole in the thermostat, just like this. And that is so when we first start this engine, there will be a small bypass for all the air bubbles to burp out of the system. Burping the air bubbles out of your system is important because you don't want any air pockets within the cooling system because you want coolant. There is thermostats that come with a hole pre-drilled just like this one, but this is a 180 degree thermostat while the one I just drilled is 160. All right, with our thermostat in the housing, we go ahead and start bolting this down. Oh man, this is starting to look like a real engine now. And also huge thanks to Greg Paul for keeping us caffeinated. He also left us a really nice message. Pause it if you'd like to read it. All right, let's get back to work. So because the spark plug wires we got are not a set size, we have to cut them to length and put them together. We have to throw on our headers in order to know how to properly route the spark plug wires into each. Oh, come on. So pretty big issue here. This spark plug is way too close to that header still, which sucks because that's now two sets of headers that have given us fitment issues. But honestly, since these were just 60 or 80 bucks, we're gonna give them a bit of encouragement. Let's see what we're looking like. That didn't work. Maybe we need a bigger hammer. So I have an old socket right where it needs to hit. I feel like I'm gonna do more damage elsewhere. Instead of just guessing, we're gonna grab one of the actual plug wires and see if we have enough clearance. And it looks like we don't have enough clearance. It is, well, these headers are not gonna work. If I were to keep on bashing it in until it fits, at that point the pipe is gonna be completely pinched shut. So, well, that really sucks because now not only our equal length headers do not fit, those do not fit. They do sell headers specifically for this GT40P head, which would resolve our clearance issues, but they're like 600 bucks, and that's not even an option. I think we're gonna have to go with the DIY route and fabricate our own headers. At that point, we would just basically pay for the material cost of these primary tubes. But it's something I have never done before, so that might be a bit time consuming and set us back on our timeline quite a bit, but I'm not seeing another option. I guess we'll just forget about the headers for now. We just got another package at the PO. Oh yeah! This is an ARP harmonic balancer bolt, which is basically kind of the best of the best that you can get. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the threads, as well as on the backside of the washer. All right, I got my lady holding on to the flywheel so it doesn't spin. And this is getting torqued down to 120, which is the torque rating for the ARP bolt. Ready? Okay, that's 100. Cool beans. Let me just up it to 120. All right. Thank you, thank you. Guess the only thing left to do is stick this joint back in there. In order to mount the starter, we have to also install the transmission because the starter gets bolted directly onto the bell housing. And this is perfect because this transmission is missing half its guts, so it doesn't even have an input shaft, so we could just bolt it on like that and it'll just be like a shell. I was going to just remove the bell housing itself, but then the engine would just be teeter-tottering if it's only mounted to the engine mounts. So I figured we might as well just throw it back in there. I might regret doing it in this order, but that's a future me problem. All right, transmission is in its place. Hoping that I could just drop this guy in and bolt it up directly to the transmission. Keyword hoping. Useless casters, man. Useless. At this point, I might as well be dragging on the frame of the engine hoist by itself with no casters. That's how useless they are. Some of you suggested soaking them in Marble Mystery Oil. I've been soaking them in every kind of oil and lubricant and WD-40, PB Blaster, but I think I just need new ones. All right, so now the only trick is to line up the engine with the transmission, which should be easy, right? And for those of you thinking I should have dropped them both together, bolted on already, that's a good idea, but we aren't lifting from the adjustable engine sling. Instead, we're using this lift plate right here, which has no adjustability, so it would, yeah. All right. I might be regretting my decision. Might be onto something. How are we looking, guys? I don't know why I did it like this. Maybe because I like to struggle. I think this might actually work. Dowel pin is in. I'm gonna slip one of the bolts in so it can align with one dowel pin and one bolt. And we should be good to go after that. I forgot to put the separator plate in between them. Why did none of you remind me? This is your guys' fault. Well, I guess we'll get to undoing. Does that? Holy crap. Guys, made such a rookie mistake. I deserve it because how the hell did I not Did I not remember? Oh. I just know some of you were screaming at the TV. If only I coulda heard you. The mistake is that this plate has to be installed before the flywheel. We already torqued these down and Loctited them, but yeah, actually it goes on like this. Time to put these leverage bolts back in. What an idiot. Luckily, from what I've read, these are not torqued to yield bolts, so they can be reused. This is just my excuse to use this tool. I like it. Whoa. That would be a bad day if this fell on my foot. I can't believe I forgot it. Actually, I'm gonna clean it up a bit. After a half-assed cleaning job for a part that nobody will ever see, we are back. And missing a dowel pin. Since we don't have a dowel pin, once we install it, we're gonna have to like shimmy it upwards, which will be a struggle, but we'll come out the other side. That's it. We'll come out the other side. I've already cleaned up the bolts, and we'll be applying Loctite once again. Okay, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. This plate might seem kind of not important, but this port right here actually helps the starter teeth align with the flywheel teeth. And now we're good now, we're good. This thing is just kind of like floating here. Flywheel's back on, torque to spec. Let's keep the ball rolling. See, it was kind of lucky that we aligned it the first time as fast as we did. I don't assume it'll be as easy this time. Okay, dowel pin is kind of in. So we have 1 bolt and 1 dowel pin started. We're sitting flush, ladies and gents, we're sitting flush. And it's threading in by hand. If you can thread it in with your fingers, then you know it's aligned pretty damn good. We actually have our plate on there. Woohoo, woohoo. There's yet another big issue. See, although everything is bolted up and lined up, even on this side you'll see the bolt is going through the plate that's sandwiched in between the block and the transmission. Down here where the starter goes, you'll see that not only do the bolt holes not align, neither does the whole entryway for the starter. But how could that be if everything lines up? Everything is aligned correctly. I think it's simply just the wrong block plate. This one might be for like a C6 transmission on a 351 or something like that. Oddly enough, everything bolts up, but it's just this, yeah. So guess what that means, guys? We have to remove the engine again and the flywheel. Yay! All right, let's take a look at what the problem is. So, if we line up the bolt holes, you'll see that all the transmission to engine block bolt holes align with each other, but the starter bolts still do not align. So, clearly, we can't use this. I have an extra T5. Let's see if by any chance, holy crap, it aligns with this T5, but not the other T5. Ay. Well, you might be thinking, why don't we just bolt this one up and call it a day? Well, it's because this one is from a 99 to 04 V6 Mustang, and this one is from an 86 Fox body Mustang. And throughout those years, there were some changes made with the bell housing, input shaft, as well as the mounting location has moved about an inch or so backwards. We basically already designed this car around that transmission and that engine setup. In simple terms, we can mix and match parts between the two transmissions, but this bell housing does have to be used, as well as the tail housing has to be used, which basically just translates to we're SOL for the time being. Luckily, that piece isn't too expensive, but we are not getting the time back that we spent putting in the engine, taking it back out, putting in the engine, taking it back out. Will I make that mistake again? Hopefully not. So that's two things we have to address, one being the header issue, and two, the block plate. But even with all that, I do believe we still made some good progress. I like to believe that we were bound to run into that issue anyway, so we might as well get over it now rather than later. Well, anyway, I appreciate every single one of you that has helped out with this build, even the people that just watch, like, and subscribe. You guys are helping out more than you know. But with that being said, we will continue on the progress for the Scrapstang in the next video. With that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.